Arrest Angelina Jolie, and like 5% of people, it's got like 95, 98% likes on these videos. They're like, are you kidding? You know, it's just her idea. Well, Joseph Goebbels was putting out ideas. She is an official UN envoy everywhere, pushing for the Libya attack, Syria, Uganda, you know, arrest Coney, invade. She knows what she's doing. And, you know, it's time to call their bluff. The UN is Murder Incorporated, involved in every evil you can imagine, including extermination in Uganda. And I'm sick of some chicken neck, nobody, ugly scumbag, piece of trash, drughead garbage up there telling me how great war is. I'm calling her out. I'm calling the emperor has no clothes, Paul.
And the evidence is that it's starting to work because there's been a massive backlash. The Coney frauds have been forced to disable the comments on their YouTube channel. They've been forced to put out this video clarifying the fact that people have found out they're a business empire that spends 80+% of the income on their own travel expenses and staff, like Red Cross and these other fake charities. So, I mean, they're now on the run, and the backlash is very much in evident with this Coney 2012 fraud. So that proves again that we can hijack their platforms and throw them back in their face. I agree. Good job, Paul. They are globalists, crime syndicate, empire-pushing trash, posing as liberal trendies. Hello, I'm Alex Jones. I'm going to be honest with you here on this 13th day of March 2012 on this Tuesday. I've really studied the global elite, and I've tried to really discover reality, and I would hear people like Greg Palast, I don't know, when I first was interviewing him like 12, 13 years ago, say, no, the elite are not in control, they're out of control, it's a bunch of different combines stealing and robbing from each other. And I would disagree with that. I would say, no, there is an organized system. But now I realize it's both. They've got an organized system to rob us, and they sit around their commission tables, like in The Godfather, literally deciding on different things they're going to allow and different scams they're going to run. And they also cheat each other. So they're good at grabbing and stealing and stomping on the little guy and dumbing everybody down. But they're not good at actually controlling themselves. And I mean, a great example of this was 8-9 months ago, radiation levels, different isotopes go off the chart. So the EPA raised one isotope 100 and something thousand times, others a couple thousand times. You can see the whole list. You know, this isotopes raised 2,500 times what they say safe. You know, we're not going to test the milk now. It just shows that the elite are crazy. I mean, and that's even scarier than thinking they're in control. Greg, I want to get into 10 years after Fukushima, or 1 year after Fukushima, 10 years. And I want to get into the Iran war and the economy. But is it just me, or are things going completely insane? I mean, I was covering the last hour and a half or so. Suddenly they admit pedestrian accidents are up. People are walking in front of cars. I saw cars everywhere wrecking this morning while they were texting. The public's disconnected. The elite are disconnected. What's going on, Greg?
Well, actually,
yeah, we cut his interview short.
I think that they know pretty well what they're doing. Yeah, there's always an internal fight between elites, and in fact, and obviously. Go ahead. Yeah. There's always a fight between the elites. For example, we see it now between the billionaires behind Obama and the billionaires behind Romney. As we had discussed before, the top billionaires behind Romney are Paul the Vulture Singer, John Paulson, Bill Koch. Behind Barack Obama is Penny Pritzker. And of course, the banking elite of the major commercial and white shoe banks, investment banks like J.P. Morgan is behind Obama, and Goldman Sachs tends to be on both sides, but mostly on Obama's side. And what you have, in other words, why are guys like Singer and Paulson, who people may not know of? These are vulture investors. These are hedge fund managers. These are multi billionaires. Paulson made nearly $4 billion in a single year, more than any other American has ever made in history. Maybe anyone has made in history in a single year, basically betting against and pushing the mortgage market over a cliff. There's a fight between these groups, but they agree on some basic principles that one group will get your money or the other group will, but you won't. I mean, I'm laughing, but that's how it is. I mean, but they have very, very different ideas about how the economy should be run. Obviously, the Singer the Vulture and his hedge fund boys think it should be run for them, and Obama's billionaires, Pritzker, and guys like Robert Rubin think it should be run for them. There's a conflict because one is older, more established money, and the other's new hot money.
Well, where do you see it all going? Because my gut tells me, and then I can intellectually, geopolitically look at things and tell me stuff's about to get really rocky. If we think the last 4 or 5 years have been crazy, what's coming up in the future? You concur that stuff's about to get really wild?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, one of the things, actually, I just spoke to a billionaire who said, we're coming to a second collapse because we haven't felt the full force of the commercial real estate market collapse. And that's heading our way again. And so, the question is, can they kite it past the election? And is there an advantage in someone pulling the trigger before or pulling the trigger after the election? So we have another round of, another fecal flow coming our way. Plus, you do have the euro, which is, if you read in my latest book, Vulture's Picnic, the euro was created with the intent of destroying the European economies as we know them. It really was. I spoke to the guy who invented the euro, Bob Mundell, got the Nobel Prize for it. I had long conversations with him. He's thrilled about it. The destruction was part of it. What they thought was creative destruction. But the question is, the destruction doesn't just stay over there. You can wreck Europe, and what happens over here?
Well, I remember you breaking all this down in 2002, and then they all day criticize people that are on welfare, but then the mega banks hold us hostage but too big to fail. That's all part of their plan. Will they be successful? We'll talk about that and a lot more straight ahead with Greg Palast, and I'm going to open the phones up as well. I want to talk to Greg Palast, BBC investigative journalist, best-selling author. The toll-free number to join us on this live Tuesday, 13th of March is 800-259-9231. 800-259-9231. Greg, I wanted to ask you a question because, I've tracked this Coney 2012 thing that's got connections to the State Department and to the UN and Bill Gates and the rest of them. And, it's got hundreds of millions of views online, raised huge amounts of money, and it says, let's invade Uganda to go after Coney. I'm not saying Coney's a good guy, but nobody's seen him in 5-6 years, and Ugandans are all making videos saying, this guy isn't the issue here. Our own government's killing us. As you know, you've been to Africa in that area many times. And then I made the point when Angelina Jolie called for Coney's arrest and an invasion. I'm sick of her. She's an official UN envoy, not just a spokeswoman. And, when she's not doing Kabbalah rituals or talking about how much she loves death cults, she's doing photo ops with children, giving them food and stuff when I see the UN engaged in crimes against people everywhere. She's calling for the Libya war, went over there in Tunisia to cheer for it and praise the al-Qaeda forces. She's praising proxy wars in Syria. And I know you've dealt with Assad. We're not saying he's a good guy. She's praising wars all over the place. She's clearly, it's this left cover for war. It's one thing when Bush launches wars. It's disgusting, war crime, guaranteed. But now with Obama, he's launching wars without congressional approval. He's getting the Peace Prize. I mean, it's clear this is part of a left cover operation where I see all these trendies and hippies running around calling for all these global proxy wars, which aren't about, and from my research, helping people. It's all about taking over. Now, I know you've been to Africa over and over. You're one of the main people who's really investigated this. And you know the score, probably anybody that I know, but 95% or more of the comments were positive. The likes were like 98%. But it got a lot of attention, millions of views total. Scores of newspapers picked up my arrest Angelina Jolie for war crimes. And what I said in the video is, hey, Angelina, if you're saying arrest Coney and legitimize the ICC, then by that yardstick, what happened in NATO is a war crime. And I've had Colonel Schaefer and many others on who worked at those highest levels of deciding what's a war crime and not. I've had congressional experts on. I mean, clearly, it was an illegal war against Libya. The Syria thing with proxies is classically destabilization and an offensive war. All of this is going on, and it's this new left cover. What's your view on that?
Well, Coney's an interesting, this Coney 2012 business is very interesting because, you know, obviously Coney is a warlord. I've investigated many of these guys. He's one of dozens, by the way. And obviously he's a killer. He goes into villages and grabs kids and says, if you don't kill your parents and join our army, we'll kill you, or we'll kill your parents, and then they do anyway. Yeah, he's a madman, a killer, a maniac, and you know, you want to hang him up high? I have no problem with that. The question is, what is this telling us? What is Coney 2012 telling us? It's telling us first, yes, send in troops, and we don't even know, people in America don't even know where the hell that is that we're sending them, okay? And by the way, Obama, well before this video, had sent in 100 commandos already, and that's what we know of, and how many mercenaries, we don't know. Obviously, we've had some real problems in that area which go way beyond Mr. Coney, and a lot of killing which he's not involved in. Again, no sympathy for that guy. But let's look at the distraction. You know, when the magician is letting the cute girl in the miniskirt or the tights run around, in this case Angelina Jolie, what is being covered? What aren't you supposed to be looking at behind the curtain? And that's the question I have. There are an awful lot of warlords in Africa who've been backed by people like Jimmy Carter, who supported the maniac Charles Taylor, who is right now in prison in The Hague for war crimes. He was a creation of Jimmy Carter. And we also had, and who is making money off these things? Who's making money off the mayhem in the Congo? Who made money off the mayhem in Liberia? Again, let's go back to those elites we were talking about. When I was just in the Congo, and I was just in Liberia. And I can tell you that there are people making money off this mayhem. You don't just pull AK-47s and mortars out of trees. These are really remote areas. Someone is sending that in. Who's doing this? Well, who's benefiting? And again, we go back to people like Paul the Vulture Singer, who holds the debt, who, when there's civil war and there's madness, these guys grab the resources for next to nothing. Paul Singer has been grabbing the oil resources and cobalt, and his vulture friends, these hedge fund managers behind Romney, have been grabbing the resources of the Congo in the middle of all this mayhem. They're grabbing the resources of Uganda in the middle of this mayhem. And they have, they're trying to seize Liberia in the middle of this mayhem. They're making money off it. People are making billions off this mayhem. And that's why this is happening. If Angelina Jolie wants to, put on her pearls and run off into the jungle and grab Coney, God bless her. But, the other thing is, I would much rather see these people grab people like Singer the Vulture in New York and in Vail, Colorado, where he has a nice ski place. I'd like to see them, all these guys behind Restore Our Future, the Romney Super PAC.
Well, that's my point. Let me just throw this caveat in here. Look, this guy hadn't been seen in years. He's a minor little nobody warlord up in the northern area in Uganda, probably isn't even there. And it all comes out at a time when they want to escalate activities there. The installed leader of 26 years of Uganda is connected to all this destabilization and mass death that's happened. And it's just all part of like celebrating UN intervention and The Hague, when the UN itself has got one of the nastiest histories I've ever seen. But they have diplomatic immunity, which they pull out of the sky. So that's my point, is that when you see the entire establishment media pushing something, it stinks to high heaven. And I mean, what's your view on the Libya war? I mean, that clearly was illegal. He didn't get authorization from Congress for that.
I really have no opinions on the Libya war, except to say that I was, from Vulture's picnic of the book, I was investigating British Petroleum. You have to look at whose interests are being served. First, the same guys that sent in planes to bomb and kill Gaddafi were the guys that were hugging him. Tony Blair, on the day that the United States and Great Britain recognized the killer terrorist government of Gaddafi, the very same day, British Petroleum signed a $2 billion agreement with Gaddafi, to develop oil in the Benghazi eastern sector of Libya. When the rebel